Forget
is
that
that
center.
the signal?
Yeah, we're live. All right.
All right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Mining Tools podcast. And I'm your host, Scott Offord. And we have Ethan.
Hi. Hi, everybody. And then, down below here, we've got
Shannon.
Shannon. Yeah.
Shanon Squires. Thank you for coming on our show, Shannon. Shannon is somebody that we've been working with the last little while here with Crypto Mining Tools. He's helping us getting our hosting directory up and running, and he's got a wealth of knowledge to share with us.
Absolutely.
But yeah, first of
I'm
all,
so excited.
Shannon, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your history and kind of how you got into this whole mining space?
Yeah. So basically, I got involved with cryptocurrency. I guess into 2016 and early 2017, and obviously didn't put any money behind it soon enough. From a friend who's a banker, he asked me some questions about it. I'm a bit of a nerd. And once I started digging into it, I had a handful of GPUs at home. So obviously, as any gamer with a computer, they can make money off their GPUs. I started mining Ethereum. I mined it a few different ways, and then I got a little bit crazy about it and set up a bunch of GPU rigs. Got them running in my crawl space in my house. My wife was not a huge fan. But probably mined, I don't know, 100 different altcoins in that process and learning and built a few different rigs, a few different ways. Did some day trading in 2017, lost a decent amount of money, won a decent amount of, everything, and then lost it all when it crashed. Used a little bit that I had left to buy my first batch of ASICs, and those were too noisy for the house. So
Absolutely.
My wife was, yeah, anybody, obviously you guys here, you've heard ASICs run, 50 plus decibels, screaming all the time. And there's ways to quiet them for the DIY guys, putting them in different coolers and wrapping them with sound deadening stuff and basically making mufflers, but wasn't super feasible. Ended up with a business partner who's a retired tax attorney, and he said, hey, let's put together kind of a pilot project in modeling how we'd build a container and do that. So we set up a tough shed in his backyard and set up a hot side, cold side, put in a few GPU rigs, put in a handful of ASICs, got it running profitably off of, I think at the time, Colorado was like 9.9 cent power. In the summertime, Colorado goes up to 14.5% power. Sorry if my daughter's singing in the background.
No worries. No worries.
Homeschooling like everybody.
Right.
Yeah, and so I had some ebb and flows with that, and definitely learned the ins and outs of controlling airflow within the containers or within the facility, however we were going to build it, which was key to not overheating everything.
Sure.
Made a lot of great contacts within the ASIC world and trying to purchase those, and obviously that's how I eventually ran into Scott, is looking at buying some of the resale miners for various projects and putting those together. Once we had that pilot project up and going, and it was running for a few months, and we actually have a US based bank account. So one of the few business accounts, I think, that can directly accept transfers from cryptocurrency exchanges. That took a lot of work. Got that done. So everything was on the down low. We weren't using international accounts. And then we went looking for funding. Looking for funding was a new task for me. I've wired a whole bunch of electricity, different projects in my life. I've done a bunch on the computer hardware side in my life and construction and all that. So the majority of the aspect of putting together a mining container, mining farm, that type of stuff is something that was just, I had the ability to do. Fundraising was not in my wheelhouse. And that was kind of where my business partner came in. He has a wealth of contacts for many, many years. He's the gray hair side of that project. And so we started going through them to get capital, finally got a partner. We're working on getting that capital together, and that kind of fell apart at the end of the last year as far as the capital to put together full scale 30 megawatt natural gas, stranded gas power plant and Bitcoin mining project. So at the beginning of this year, we started essentially trying to progress that project again and get it up and going at a new location. So started sourcing those and moving through that whole process again. that's kind of the background on the cryptocurrency side of things. I hope that covers it all.
Well, it kind of sounds to me like you've come to the same conclusion that I've seen many people come to, is that maybe like the home mining situation is pretty much dead. Like it's just, you can't really pull it off mining from home. So it's kind of like go big or just get out. And it seems like you went that direction as well.
Yeah, and so I mean the biggest thing is just the cost of power. I've said this for years. I don't know. I like to think I coined this phrase, but essentially Bitcoin is the global arbitrage of power. Basically, if there's a way to produce power cost effectively, you want to get there and mine it, because that's going to allow you to be profitable regardless of how large the network hash rate grows, regardless of how low the price goes. If you have the lowest cost of power, lowest cost to produce a Bitcoin, whether, you know, all metrics included, operational costs, all that fun stuff. When everybody else has to shut down, you're still going to be running. So typically running ASIC miners in your house, you know, you can wire 220, get them running in a shed in your backyard. You're going to be buying power from a utility, and utilities are selling retail power, and that's expensive. So there's some places that have some awesome, unique ability to buy retail power, but even then it doesn't get you super cheap. And so over the process of the last few years, you know, we went from, hey, here's how we manage, and realizing that if you look throughout Bitcoin's history and the hardware and do all the comparisons, you have, you know, sub 5-cent power. You've been profitable this entire time with the hardware you've had, as long as it was newer than like an S7.
Right.
If you had cheap enough power, S7s were still slightly profitable depending on where you were located. So,
well, yeah. Now, recently, you know, we've kind of come into a very difficult situation where we're in a tough time right now, and this has created a global issue that has, you know, created an oil war, if you will, and the price of oil is tanked, and everybody is very fearful that our economy is going to suffer greatly, and especially in the, you know, energy aspect of it. When the price of oil went up above a certain level, it became very profitable to, you know, drill and get oil and here in the United States. And now, because the price of oil has tanked, it's no longer feasible, and people are really worried about losing their jobs. Do you think by cryptocurrency going to, you know, these stranded resources and utilizing these stranded resources might be a viable way to keep them going, to keep them alive?
It's kind of a balancing act. So the reason why natural gas was so cheap is because, like you said, we were producing oil. So I'm much more familiar with Colorado than everywhere else, but it's pretty similar. Essentially, you want to produce oil, you drill a big hole in the ground, you frack it, you do all the things to get the oil out of it. Natural gas is in the way. Traditionally, and in some places you still can, they used to just flare that gas. So you'd see those big oil derricks with the flame coming out the top. I grew up in a small town in Colorado that lives and dies off the mining industry, whether it's natural gas, oil, soda ash, whatever. And so you'd see these towers, you know, all across the night sky just lit up flaring gas. So with the new EPA laws and restrictions on that, you can't flare gas the same amount you could before. So now all of a sudden they're trying to produce oil because that's worth money, and you got all this gas that's in the way. So they're shoving the gas into the pipelines, and the pipelines are getting filled up because either the oil producers, so the refineries that take gas producers, the refineries that take this raw natural gas, mix out all the liquids and all that stuff and get it to methane before they put it in the pipeline, are either completely tapped out in capacity, or there's not buyers on the other side. There's no one buying the gas because it's not being used for anything, and so it's getting backed up. And that's one form of what they call stranded gas, is essentially it's getting stuff in the pipeline and there's no one to take it on the other side. So in that situation, and from recent experience, basically a whole bunch of people have already lost their jobs. So the oil war happened. It's no longer profitable to produce oil in the same way they're doing before. Therefore, there's no natural gas coming in. I was talking with a gas producer recently, and they closed their plant. A handful of my contacts over the last, a few weeks have lost their jobs, and it's been kind of a mess, and it's definitely scary and sad.
Yeah,
we know it's going to come back. We know that, the people that are crushing the oil prices right now can't do it forever, because obviously even over there, you can't produce oil for those prices. They're just selling it at a loss, hoping to push out competition, and it can only last for so long. The other type of stranded gas are like in Colorado in the 1950s, they came through drilling for oil and all they found was natural gas. So there's thousands of wells that were just drilled in fields all over Colorado.
That are just nothing but
Wyoming.
natural gas. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's other liquids in there, but not enough to produce or worth producing. And they were never connected to a pipeline. So they're not being collected. And these wells are essentially a capping liability. So people are, if you own them, you got to cap them, or you can get in trouble and have to pay fees and that type of thing. The majority of these wells, though, don't produce enough gas to even like set up a whole container of miners. You're not going to be able to get a megawatt off of them. You're not going to be able to get enough to produce, and so it's a little bit different story. That was the first route we were going, is trying to use some of those stranded gas wells to produce power for Bitcoin mining. Because if you could produce enough, it's super cheap, relatively speaking. And we also had an Excel pipeline next to it, all that kind of stuff. So we had backup and stuff to get to scale. We'll fix it later, Michaela.
Hi, Michaela.
And, everybody says hi to you. And so, so that's kind of the stranded gas world. So I don't know that Bitcoin can necessarily, I mean, there's the possibility there. So we're trying to talk to that one gas producer who essentially shut down and trying to get, find out if there's, people still pushing gas in the pipeline, what type of super cheap prices, break even production can we get that for, and see if we can put together a project still with them. I actually just listened to a podcast you did not too long ago with a gas producer who essentially shut off his pumps to run ACE. I'm like, sweet, I got to send this to those guys. So I'm catching up on your podcast. And so I'm like, that's exactly the path we kind of ran into all on our own, is trying to talk into gas producers into what he's doing. Because that is typically the people in the gas and oil industry don't look at natural gas from a standpoint of, I'm going to turn this into Bitcoin and sell it for something that has a large value. They look at it from a standpoint of like, I'm selling natural gas to a power plant. Jupiter is the largest planet.
Okay. Good to know.
Sorry again. But so trying to get them to look at it as, instead of monetizing natural gas for a power plant, we're monetizing natural gas for Bitcoin
or cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, or any cryptocurrency for that matter. Sorry, I fixed on Bitcoin currently, but there's a handful of GPU stuff that's working well. I'm going to take care of this 1 second. I apologize.
No worries. I'm going to talk about NovaBlock, our sponsor. A big shout out to NovaBlock. I'd like to, let everybody know that they're really new on the scene, but in a very short period of time, they have become one of the top pools that are out there. And they believe that as hash rate is shifting away from China, and we all know that China is kind of in a really bad spot right now, and moves towards, freer countries like North America, that they want to be the leader in doing that. And they want to be the leader by giving all of their customers not only just a great pool to work with, but giving them transparency about what their pool is doing, which I think is really important. So Scott up here is going to show you guys how to get a good deal from them. And I just want to remind everybody, if you've got a big farm, I mean, if you're doing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 plus megawatts of power, talk to them, tell them, that me and Scott sent you, and you can negotiate a better deal than what we can give you directly from this podcast. Here you go, Scott.
Yeah. So if you go to their website on the top right-hand side, you can enter, go to sign up, and you can enter the invitation code offered 18. And when you sign up for an account with NovaBlock, that will give you a permanent reduction in your pool fees down to 1.8%. Now they could do better if you have a lot of hash power, but definitely go there, use the invitation code OFFORD18. Thank you, NovaBlock, for sponsoring our podcast.
Thanks, NovaBlock.
Shannon.
Okay, now we're back with Shannon. Shannon, looks like your microphone was muted there for a second. Hopefully all problems have been resolved.
We'll see. 4-year-old problems never really get resolved.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep telling us about this stranded gas and the kind of headway that you're making towards utilizing it instead of making a liability, turn it into something that is useful.
Yeah, so that's kind of the goal is, I went from the crypto mining side trying to put together this farm, and now I'm becoming more of like a landman, trying to source places to get cheap natural gas or cheap power and put those together into larger projects. And so there's kind of that twofold piece is that, hey, are we working on the stranded gas side from an oil producer who's trying to get rid of it, and that's where the cheap gas prices were coming from? Or are we trying on the other side to monetize those wells effectively?
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're dealing with the oil war, that oil producer side of it going into the gas production, most gas producers like, yeah, I know the price is that cheap, but I'm not going to sell you a contract at that rate because I don't make any money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to get those deals put together once they get to the point that they want to make some money off of it. And even if it's just a little tiny bit, we have a way to monetize that. So throwing, miners into a container, dropping that container on site, setting up, a handful of, either gas turbines or reciprocating generators and a transformer and getting it going becomes a pretty mobile project. So you could move it anywhere, which I don't think a lot of power producers and gas producers are used to. They're used to having to figure out how to get right-of-ways for gas lines, get gas lines strung across the state to get everything to produce the power, produce the power, get that into power lines, run that distribution to where it needs to go. It's a much larger thing than this. This is a down and dirty, let's just make electricity and plug it in type situation.
Sure.
So I was working with a producer setting up a power plant, or, he's a friend, colleague. And it was a massive one, 750 megawatt natural gas and solar. But their cost to produce power is actually pretty high, because once you get to that level of power production, when you're trying to send it to a state or a municipality to replace, say, coal or something of that matter, there's a lot more that goes into the gas purchase and the amount that's coming in, and then the distribution on the other side that increases that power rate. So these sub 4 cent, sub 3 cent power that everybody's talking about are extremely rare. And it typically requires you to own the power distribution or the power production in order to get into those realms. And so you get asked all those questions about trying to find that power. Bitmain's looking for the same thing. So you're running.
Oh yeah, everybody is scratching and clawing, trying to find that sub 3 cent, even sub 2 cent power.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, for some of our listeners who are new to this, some of them might have heard of that sub 3 cents and might be searching for that themselves. And Crypto Mining Tools as a company, we have been working on something that kind of helps those people, not only the new people, but also the existing people that have farms that maybe would want to relocate to a cheaper place. So what I wanted to do before we wrapped up here in the next 10, 15 minutes was just talk about maybe some of those differences between those all-in managed hosting services and some of those co-location and the PPA, the power purchase agreement. So maybe you could just shed a little bit of light on that. And what your experience has been. Can you give us
like an overview of all the different types and what they do and what they mean? And
yeah, so basically, everybody that I've talked to over the last who knows how long all has a little bit of a different idea on each of those. And the way we've kind of categorized it is that there's essentially 3 types of services people are looking for. Number one is fully managed hosting. Essentially, you send someone your miners.
It's turnkey. It's turnkey. It's ready to go.
You mail it to them. They're going to plug them in, set them up, get them mining to the pool you want them to mine to. get the, everything full service. They're going to do the maintenance on the miners, make sure they're getting, dusted and cleaned and not overheating. And if something goes down, they have a technician who's going to be able to go to that miner, figure out if it just needs restarted or if a board needs pulled and sent in for repair. So it's a fully managed service, good to go. And there's lots of those out there. There's lots of places that offer this type of service all over the world. From the US, Canada, Switzerland, Sweden, Russia, China, Japan. There's options just about everywhere. And there's more that differentiates them than just their price. So a lot of them, it's kind of a basic service. You're going to send them their miner, they're going to plug it in, get it running, and then it's kind of hands off. They walk by, have security, they restart it if you call them and say it's down. So minimal managed. All the way up to people who, will host your GPUs in any number of rigs. They'll do custom overclocking for them, make sure they're housed appropriately, cleaned appropriately, cooled appropriately, make sure they're, updating drivers like they're supposed to, tweaking the cards to get the maximum amount out of it. So obviously people that are taking that level of service, they charge a bit more than the people that are, doing the minimum. So with the managed hosting, there's still a range. Yeah,
managed hosting still has a lot of diversity to it. Okay.
And then there's the co-location. So typically co-location is for a larger client, someone who has, a significantly larger amount of miners, whether that's, half a megawatt, 2.5 megawatts, or multiple containers they want to put down. But co-location is, I want to take my miners and put them in your facility, but I want to run them myself. So instead of being managed by the person who's hosting them, you're managing them yourself. So that means if you want maintenance done, you're showing up and having, you and your employees do the maintenance. You
have a guy, George, get out there and reboot it.
Exactly. So that's co-location, and that can be done. Once again, there's a little bit of range on that. Like maybe you already have your own container and you're looking for a place to co-locate an entire container or multiple containers, or maybe you have, 800 GPU rigs or, 150 ASICs. And you want a place to put them in that's maybe in your current state or nearby that has a better rate, but you still want to be associated with managing those them yourselves. Obviously, co-location is a little bit cheaper than managed because you're removing those operational expenses. And then the last one is kind of the PPA land type options. So these are people who typically have a significant amount of infrastructure of either miners or capital in which they want to put together their own large project.
They're just looking for the raw energy to tap out and utilize.
Yep. Typically, those projects need to be 10 megawatts or bigger in order to get to the metrics that they're looking for on power costs. And there's a significant upfront cost with land development, permitting, power development, power generation. Maybe you're building out substations or transformers, and there's a lot of
infrastructure and generators and just.
Yep. It's not, that whole 3-cent power thing. It's not, you can just show up and figure out how to plug in. It's, hey, someone's generating excess power and it's coming off at distribution voltage, and you got to have a substation stepping it down to 480, and then you have to have a transformer stepping it down to 240. Then you have to, land lease or land purchase, permitting for the land. It's a much larger concept. And typically involves obviously more than just me. You're getting involved with gas and oil guys, land guys. And
today's special guest is
Yodeler.
Yes. So that's kind of the power purchase option. Let's see if ABC Mouse will start working. And there's a plug for them.
My daughter's doing that right now. She's doing math and reading and all sorts of things. Ethan, why don't you just tell us a little bit about our hosting directory that we're getting up and running. I'll actually put the site here on the screen.
Can you pull it up, Scott?
This is going to be a preview. It's not launched today, but very, very soon.
It is very, very soon. So, as Shannon was just discussing, as you guys can see, we have those 3 different power situations, or hosting situations, because power purchase agreement really is just all about seeking, the raw power and having, the huge capital expense up front to tap into that. And it's not, a short term game. This is something that you would need to plan out for 5, plus years onwards. But, you have the ability to go in there and to say how many megawatts of power that you need. And also you can select some other options there. Go ahead and put in just 10. And if you click next, and again, this is a preview, but you can see we actually do have already in our database some registered, this is the power purchase. So this is the raw power. And you can go through, we, like Scott said, there's still just some, T's to cross and some I's to dot, but we're going to be launching this very, very soon. You can go through, you can do, go ahead and show co-location as well. So you can decide, whether you want to co-locate to, an existing data center, or do you want to co-locate your mobile container to an on-site power that's already been established. And then we have the fully managed hosting. And we went through a lot of strides here to make it very easy for the novice user. So let's just say you're getting new into this and you don't know, how many watts your miners that you just bought are using. You can go through our database, you can select, you can find the miners that you purchased, and it will automatically start to calculate the watts that you're using. Let's say you're a little bit more seasoned of a user and you've got some GPUs you want to add to that. Obviously, we don't have GPUs in our database. You can add a custom power value, and it will also calculate that in. And this helps you understand, when you click the next button, what, your total power that you're requesting, so what you're going to be able to use, and it'll give you an idea of what kind of price range you can get. And you can see in our database, we have many hosting facilities listed all around the world. It's the first of its kind. It's a one-of-a-kind system. And Scott and I have desperately felt like it's been needed in the market for a long time because, as people are needing cheaper and cheaper power, the ability to just simply plug in at home or to, create a tool shed out in your backyard and mine like that, it's not really viable anymore. So we hope to take all these little miners, these self miners, and help them find a location that is a good fit for them to keep them profitable, to keep them going.
Yeah. I'll bring Shannon back on here. Yeah, and Shannon, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in the last couple months in helping us get this up and running?
Yeah, so basically I've been calling and reaching out to every hosting facility, co-location facility, PPA facility that's advertising for cryptocurrency related products, and trying to make those connections. And the biggest thing is it's not like a normal website where you're just going to go click on stuff and it's going to send you to that other person's website, and maybe they're good, maybe they're bad. We're actually trying to go through and verify every listing that's put in there, have conversations with them, really understand what product they have available. So who has the really high-end hosting that's tweaking every little thing for you, and who is on the lower side of that, what their rates are, what they're willing to do for people that are looking for these products, where they're located, and hoping that these people are set up in situations that they're not going to disappear after you send their miners to them. Obviously, that's been a problem in the past. Yes. So we want to make sure we're not working with those people. Thankfully, Scott has been, has a great reputation within this space from doing all the miner reselling and all that. So it's been awesome to work with and talk to all these providers and get them put together. So we work more like a brokerage than just a click here, get some information type website.
Absolutely.
So basically, once you click there and you're looking for that information and you figure out where you want to be, what type of power you're looking for, we're going to make sure you're kind of connected to the best option, and make sure, obviously there's more than one, and then make sure that we're not just sending these hosting facilities people that are just, wasting their time. So, hey, I want to do this, but I don't have miners. I don't have the capital. Maybe it's something you want to do and you want to learn about it. Awesome. We'll teach you. But it's not, we're trying to make sure that it's all real and not a whole bunch of scammy things going on as best we can. No guarantees, but trying.
Yeah, I can definitely, confirm that we have gone through great lengths. We have multiple conversations with these facilities before they can even be listed in our system, and we make sure that they're as vetted as we can possibly vet them. Now, I mean, that's not to say that given these hard times, strange things might or might not happen, even, with people that have the best of intentions. But we have made all of our efforts to assure that, if you decide to do business with a hosting facility that you find in our system, that they are going to be, exactly what you want, and deliver the service that you need in a reliable, trustworthy way.
Yeah. So Ethan, when can we possibly expect to see this published on our live website?
I'm working right now with the developers to get it pushed to the live website. I'm hoping within the next 24 hours that will be done.
Awesome. That's great. So Shannon, we're just going to wrap it up here soon. But anything else that you want to add?
Well, I would like to add, how can people reach out to you, Shannon? Because this is kind of how we close every episode, is how can people reach out to you and maybe say hi to Michaela one more time?
Yeah. Right now I'm starting to get more active on Telegram. That's seeming to be a good place to kind of network and go through that. I actually have no idea what my handle is on Telegram.
Squires.
It's Squires.
Just add Squires. Awesome.
Yeah,
that's good
Squires. Scott, can you write that down so people can see that? Can you type it out?
Here we go.
And then obviously it's Shannon at cryptomining.tools. So either of those are probably going to be the best two methods of contact. Kind of keep it simple and keep it in those two locations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and then maybe just tell us a little bit about your own project that you were going to get up and running. You were saying that you were working on that last year, but it didn't quite come to fruition.
You're trying to rehash it.
Yeah, so basically after the funding kind of fell apart for a 30 megawatt, basically it was going to be a 10 megawatt mining facility and a 10 megawatts of power production is kind of the stage one that we're going for. Okay. And once that was going to be completed, or once that fell apart, we kind of went back to the drawing board as far as, okay, we can go down the same path, try to monetize stranded gas wells, or what's the other options? So that's when we started looking into gas producers and making deals, at the source, either on the backside of the gas, getting essentially raw gas, separating it ourselves and producing power, or clean on the other side if they needed to get rid of it. Then the oil war started, so that changed. So currently we're looking into a couple other options. And we have 3 locations that we found, one in Colorado, potential in Texas, and a potential in North Dakota. That should meet our needs for getting the cost of power down to where we want it to be. So we're in the process of starting to negotiate that gas purchase, and the hard part right now is getting people to answer telephones because they're either potentially unemployed or dealing with that mess, or just not working. So it's been a bit of a struggle the last few weeks to get the people on the phone we need to and keep the VCs updated. And so that's the other side of it, is the venture capital side. So you got people that are potentially investing in this project, and it's a multi-billion-dollar project.
Sure.
It's not big enough for a big, it's 500 million where you can go to like Goldman Sachs and ask for money, but it's enough that most people aren't going to hand it over easy with no background being done. So trying to put that together in a good package for them. Originally, we were looking at doing more of a type of public offering, kind of an exempt public offering. But we went back to the concept of just going with like 1 or 2 primary funders and partnering with them and having it as a kind of a joint partnership moving in. So at this point, once we get those gas contracts secured, hopefully the funding works out this time and we can start putting things together and putting it down. So handful of networks in the power production, handful of network on the mining side, and then I get to put together a team to make it work like it's supposed to. If we have excess power, then we'd be looking at joining that group as a hoster. Primarily our project is self-mining. Like we want to take full advantage of the risk and reward of Bitcoin in this project. But if there's excess power above that 10 megawatts that we have to produce in order to get our rates down, then we'll be looking at other people to come, buy that from us.
To fill that in.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just to wrap it up, and in the last 1 minute of the podcast, what would you say to those people who have maybe 1 megawatt of mining equipment they want to get up and running, but they are convinced that they really just need 2 cents power?
Well, if you want super crazy cheap power, you need to make sure you have your wallet open and you're ready to build a power plant or buy a substation or something from that aspect. And other than that, I would say right now, looking at it for average hosting rates, I think the cheapest possible options are in the high 4-cent range, and some of those may include some sort of profit share or some sort of upfront costs for expanding a facility,
or in some foreign country,
or in Russia. That they have some unique power options that not everybody has, and I haven't been able to go out there and actually personally see these farms myself. So there's that different risk that goes along with that, and then all the way up to 13 cent for that, as we mentioned. Yes, someone who's really good at overclocking GPUs, running all your GPUs in a actual data center. And then on the co-location side, I think we have prices anywhere from based on size. If you can get up into the 5 megawatt range, in the mid 4s. If you're below that, you're probably looking closer to 5 cents for co-location. All the way up to, I think the highest co-location is probably around 6 cents. And then there are PPA options out there in the 3.9 cent area, but that includes you need to be buying transformers and helping with infrastructure costs up front.
You have more capital, more money in your wallet up front to pay those fees. So there's definitely the pros and cons to each different thing that we talked about today. Well, great. Thanks for your time, Shannon. And we'll let you get back to homeschooling.
Right.
Yes, I'm a miserable homeschool teacher.
Me too. I tell you, my iPad does a better job of homeschooling than I do. But yeah, anyway, thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Shannon.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.